The sound of the gavel felt like a hammer blow to my heart. 13 years. That was how long I had kept my silence. Now in this cold courtroom that silence was about to break. I am Alara Vance. I am 67 years old. My hands, wrinkled from a life of work and worry, clutched a worn yellow envelope. It was the only shield I had. Across from me sat my daughter, Valerie. She wore an elegant suit that looked alien on her. It was a costume of respectability. Her lawyer, a man with sharp eyes and a sharper smile, pointed at me. His finger was an accusation, but it was Valerie's gaze that burned me. It was filled with a rage I couldn't understand, or maybe I understood it all too well. It was the rage of someone caught in a lie. Your Honor, Valerie's voice trembled, but it was a calculated tremor, a performance. My mother has had my children for 13 years without my consent. This is parental kidnapping. I never authorized her to take them. Kidnapping. The word shot across the courtroom and lodged itself deep inside my chest. It felt like a shard of glass in my heart. I glanced back. In the third row sat my grandchildren. Arthur, now 20, tall and serious. Emily, 18, with eyes that held too much sorrow. And Andrea, my little Andrea, only 16, hugging herself as if she were still a minor, scared child. Their faces were pale masks of confusion. Judge Theodore Mason looked at me over his glasses. His eyes were tired. He had seen too many family tragedies. Mrs. Vance, he asked, what do you have to say to these accusations? My fingers tightened on the envelope. Inside was my truth, the truth I had protected for 13 long years. Your Honor, I said, my voice quiet but clear. I did not kidnap anyone. I simply raised the children my daughter abandoned on my doorstep. That's a lie, Valerie shouted, jumping to her feet. I never abandoned them. I had mental health issues. I needed temporary help. Her lawyer placed a calming hand on her arm. He was good at his job. He turned to the judge. Your Honor, my client was hospitalized for severe postpartum depression. She needed urgent medical treatment. Mrs. Vance took advantage of that vulnerability. She kept the children and alienated them from their mother. Whispers filled the room. I could feel the tide of opinion turning against me. The older woman who stole her daughter's children. It was a simple, ugly story, and it was easy to believe. But it wasn't the truth. The truth was in the sleepless nights, the fevers, the school lunches are packed before dawn, the hugs that soaked my shoulder with tears. The truth was in the 13 years of silence from my daughter. The judge's voice softened. Mrs. Vance, I understand this was difficult, but if the biological mother is requesting custody, with all due respect, Your Honor, I interrupted. My voice was stronger now. I was no longer a scared old woman. I was a protector. There are things this court needs to know, things that happened long before today. I held up the yellow envelope. The room fell silent. It was a simple gesture, but I saw Valerie's eyes widen. I saw the flicker of pure fear. In here, I said, I have documents that will change this entire conversation. The judge leaned forward. What kind of documents? Proof, I said, my voice trembling now with the weight of it all. Proof of what really happened 13 years ago. Proof of why my daughter is really here today. And it is not for love. Valerie went pale. Mom, please, don't do this. Do what, Valerie? I asked, my eyes locked on hers. Tell the truth. Her lawyer stood. Objection, Your Honor. Mrs. Vance is trying to create a diversion. Past documents do not change my client's legal rights. On the contrary, I said, these documents explain exactly why after 13 years of absolute silence, my daughter has suddenly appeared with a lawyer. They explain why after not sending a single dollar, not even a Christmas card, she suddenly wants to be a mother. The judge stared at me. Mrs. Vance, are you suggesting there are hidden motives here? I am not suggesting it, Your Honor. I'm stating it, and it is all documented. Right here. Mom, Valerie whispered, her voice a desperate plea. Think about what you're doing. A cold calm settled over me. I have had 13 years to think, Valerie. 13 years of school meetings where I was the only one in the chair. 13 years of waiting for a call that never came. Judge Mason tapped his gavel gently. Mrs. Vance, are you willing to present these documents as evidence? I looked at the envelope. It held our whole broken history, the letters, the photos, and a secret that would change everything. Yes, Your Honor, I said. I am ready. The judge nodded, his gaze steady. Very well, Mrs. Vance. But before we examine these documents, I would like to hear your full account. Tell this court what happened 13 years ago. I closed my eyes for a second. The sterile smell of the courtroom faded away. I was back in my small kitchen. It was a rainy Tuesday in October. The air smelled of damp earth and chamomile tea. I had just come from the doctor. My arthritis was getting worse. The pain was a dull, constant ache in my bones. Then a knock on the door. It was a frantic, desperate sound. I opened it and there she was. Valerie. She looked like a ghost. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes were wild. and behind her, huddled together, were the children. Arthur was 7, his small face a mask of worry. Emily was 5, her thumb stuck in her mouth. Andrea, my sweet Andrea, was just 3, crying softly, her face smeared with dirt. They were a heartbreaking sight. Their clothes were wrinkled and dirty. They looked hungry. They looked lost. Valerie pushed past me into the house. She was a hurricane of chaos. She carried a single plastic bag. Inside was a jumble of children's clothes. Nothing was clean. Mom, she said, her voice brittle, I need you to keep them for a while. Just a few weeks. I have to sort some things out. I looked at my daughter. Her gaze shifted around the room, never landing on me, never landing on her children. What problems, Valerie? I asked. Do you need money? Did something happen with their father? She just shook her head. I'll be back soon. I promise. She gave each child a quick, distracted kiss on the head. Then she turned and walked out the door. The children ran to the window, their small hands pressed against the glass. Mommy, Mommy, they cried, but she was already gone. A taxi swallowed her up and disappeared into the rain. The silence she left behind was deafening. That night, the house felt too big, too empty. Arthur asked me when his mom was coming back. Soon, I told him. It was the first of many lies I would have to tell. Andrea cried for a teddy bear she had left behind. Emily, my quiet, observant Emily, helped me make dinner. Her small hands stirred the soup. She was only 5, but she seemed to understand. She knew that a great weight had just settled on my shoulders. Days turned into weeks. I waited. The phone never rang. I had no number for her. She had moved, leaving no forwarding address. Every day the children asked about their mother. The questions were like little paper cuts on my heart. Arthur started wetting the bed again. Emily stopped talking. She retreated into a world of silence for almost a month. Andrea developed a cough that rattled her petite body and kept us all awake at night. I knew I had to do something. I had to create some normalcy for them. I decided to enroll them in the local school. But I needed their birth certificates. I needed documents. I went to Valerie's last known address. The neighbors told me she had left in the middle of the night. She owed 3 months' rent. The landlady, a kind but weary woman, handed me a cardboard box. Your daughter left this, she said. Inside, among old magazines and broken trinkets, I found the children's papers. It was a minor miracle. The judge looked up from his notes. Did you try to report this to the authorities, Mrs. Vance? Your Honor, I thought it was temporary. Valerie had had problems before, but she had never done this. I truly believed she would come back. And what would I have said? My daughter left her children with me. At that point, it wasn't a crime. It was just a family in crisis. I paused. I looked at Valerie. She was staring at her hands, twisting a ring on her finger. But the months turned into years. Arthur turned 8. He wanted his mom at his birthday party. I told him we would try to find her. Emily started first grade. Her teacher asked the class to draw their families. Emily drew a picture of me. This is my mom, Elara, she told the class. My voice broke. I took a sip of water. The memories were so sharp, so clear. The expenses started piling up. My small pension was barely enough for one person. Now I had 3 growing children to feed and clothe. I sold the last of my late husband's jewelry. I took a weekend job cleaning houses. My neighbor, Mrs. Elma Jensen, a woman with a heart of gold, watched the little ones while I worked. The judge's head snapped up. Jensen, any relation? She is my sister, Your Honor, I replied, and she can testify to every single struggle we faced in those early years. Valerie and her lawyer exchanged a look. It was a flicker of pure panic. They had not expected this. They had not expected me to have allies. They had not expected me to be prepared. They had expected me to be a weak, forgetful older woman. They were wrong. A real crisis hit when Andrea turned 5. Her cough turned into pneumonia. We ended up in the hospital. The doctors needed insurance information. They needed parental authorization for treatment, the documents that I didn't have. My heart pounded in my chest. I felt helpless. My granddaughter was sick and bureaucracy stood in the way of her care. That was the moment I knew I had to take legal action. I used the last of my savings to hire a lawyer. It cost $800, which I couldn't afford, but it was necessary. We started the process to obtain temporary guardianship. The law required us to try to locate Valerie. We published notices in the newspaper just as we were supposed to. We sent letters to her last known address. There was no response, just silence. And did you obtain legal guardianship? The judge asked. Yes, Your Honor. 10 years ago, this very court granted it to me. I have all the paperwork. For 3 more years, we were legally required to continue the search for the biological mother. She never appeared. She never called. She never sent a single dollar. Valerie shot up from her seat. I was sick. I had depression. I couldn't take care of them. Please sit down, the judge ordered, his voice firm. He turned back to me. Continue, Mrs. Vance. I took a breath. The children grew up. They became my entire world. Arthur graduated high school with honors. He has his father's mind for numbers. Emily won poetry contests. She has a way with words that can make you weep. Andrea learned to play the guitar. She formed a band. She has a fire in her soul. I took them to therapy when the nightmares came back. I took them to every doctor's appointment, every parent-teacher conference, every school play. I celebrated every birthday. I was there for every scraped knee and every broken heart. I never once lied to them about their mother. I told them she loved them but that she was unable to care for them. I showed them her picture. I saved every drawing they ever made for her, hoping that one day she would return to claim them. And they had no contact with her at all? The judge asked. Not once, Your Honor. Not until 2 months ago. She showed up at my door with her lawyer holding a custody demand. The judge leaned forward, his interest piqued. 2 months ago? After 13 years of total absence? What changed? I let a small, sad smile touch my lips. This was it. The heart of the matter. I raised the yellow envelope again. That answer, Your Honor, is in these documents. Judge Mason extended his hand. Mrs. Vance, please approach and present the document. I stood. My knees ached with arthritis, but my spirit felt strong. I walked to the stand, the envelope held tight against my chest. I could hear Valerie's nervous breathing. I could feel the eyes of the entire courtroom on me. Your Honor, her lawyer said, jumping to his feet. I request that any document be examined by the defense before being admitted as evidence. Of course, the judge replied. Mrs. Vance, please hand the documents to the clerk. I opened the envelope. My fingers trembled, not with fear, but with the raw emotion of a truth finally seeing the light of day. Let's start with this, I said. I pulled out a small packet of photographs tied with a faded red ribbon. The clerk passed them to the judge. He looked at them one by one. His expression grew grim. Describe what we see in these images, Mrs. Vance. The first photo is of Arthur. The day he arrived. His clothes are torn. His shoes have holes in the soles. The second is Emily. There are dried food stains on her face. Her hair is a tangled mess. The third is Andrea. She was wearing a diaper that had clearly not been changed in hours. Valerie covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. I took those photos, Your Honor, because a neighbor, a retired nurse, advised me to. He said it was important to document everything, not to use against my daughter, but to protect the children. The judge passed the photos to Valerie's lawyer. He glanced at them and then showed them to Valerie. She squeezed her eyes shut as if she could erase the memory. Now, I said, my voice steady. I pulled out a stack of letters. These are the letters Valerie wrote to me during the first 6 months after she left. The judge took the letters. He glanced at the handwriting. These are in your daughter's hand? Yes, Your Honor. I would know it anywhere. I looked straight at Valerie. Tell the judge what you wrote in those letters, daughter. She remained silent, her face a mask of misery. Her lawyer took the letters and began to read. His face went pale. Your Honor, I said, my voice ringing with clarity. In the first letter, dated 3 weeks after she left her children, Valerie wrote that she had met a man named Javier Dawson. She was moving to another city with him. She asked me to take care of the children a little longer. Her new partner, she wrote, did not want immediate family responsibility. The room was utterly still. Every eye was on my daughter. In the second letter, I continued, she told me she was pregnant with Javier's child. She said she couldn't come back for her children. Her new partner had threatened to leave her if she brought burdens from the past into their new life. Pregnant? The judge asked, his surprise evident. Yes, Your Honor. My daughter has another child, a son. He's 12 years old now, a child she was able to raise because it was convenient for her new relationship. From their seats, I saw my grandchildren exchange looks of pure shock. This was new to them. I had never told them. I couldn't bear to hurt them any more than they had already been broken. They had a brother they had never met. My voice grew harder, colder. I was no longer just a grandmother. I was a witness. In the third letter, Valerie asked me to sign papers that would officially renounce any claim she had to her own children. She wanted to start a new life free of legal complications. She offered me $500 for the cost of raising the 3 human beings she had brought into this world. Attorney Sullivan looked as if he were about to be sick. This was not the story his client had told him. This was not a story of postpartum depression. This was a story of cold, calculated abandonment. And did you sign those papers? The judge asked. No, Your Honor. I wrote back. I told her I didn't want her money, but if she truly wanted to disappear, she should do it completely. I told her not to contact us again until she was ready to be a mother in more than just name. I pulled one last crinkled letter from the stack. This is her reply. The last letter we received in 13 years. The judge took the document. His expression was like stone. Mrs. Vance, please read this letter aloud. I took the paper. The words were burned into my memory. My voice did not shake. Mom, fine. I won't bother you anymore. Take good care of the children because I have my own family now. If anyone asks, tell them their mom had to go far away for work. I don't want them to suffer. Sincerely, Valerie. Tears streamed down my grandchildren's faces. Arthur started to rise as if to come to me, but Emily gently pulled him back down. For 13 years I respected that decision, Your Honor. I never looked for her. I raised her children with all the love I had. I hoped, I prayed that one day she would mature, that she would return for the right reasons. And why do you believe she has returned now? The judge asked, his voice low. I took a deep, steadying breath. This was the moment, the final brutal truth. I pulled the last set of documents from the envelope. Because 3 months ago, Your Honor, my brother, Arthur Vance Sr., Valerie's uncle, passed away. The judge leaned forward again, his eyes sharp. And what does that have to do with this case? My brother, Your Honor, had no children of his own. He was a kind, generous man who loved his grandnieces and grandnephew, even from afar. In his will, he left a significant inheritance to each of them. $150,000. $50,000 for Arthur, $50,000 for Emily, and $50,000 for Andrea. Valerie let out a strangled sob. But the inheritance, I continued, my voice ringing through the silent courtroom, has a condition. The funds can only be claimed by the children if they are under the custody of a direct blood relative, their mother or their grandmother. As their legal guardian, I had already started the process for them to access that money when they came of age. The judge stared at me, the pieces clicking into place. Are you suggesting, Mrs. Vance, that your daughter returned solely to gain access to her children's inheritance? I pulled the final paper from the envelope. It was a private investigator's report. I am not suggesting it, Your Honor. I am proving it. This report shows that 2.5 months ago, just after learning of my brother's will, my daughter hired attorney Sullivan. It details her inquiries into the inheritance. It documents her entire plan. Objection, the lawyer shouted, finding his voice. That's private information. It's an illegal investigation. It is completely legal, I replied calmly. I hired a licensed private investigator the day my daughter appeared at my door with legal threats. I had every right to protect my grandchildren. Order, the judge commanded, tapping his gavel. He looked at me with a new respect in his eyes. Mrs. Vance, is there anything else in that envelope the court should know? I looked at the now nearly empty envelope. One folded sheet remained, the most painful secret of all. Yes, Your Honor. There's one more thing, something even my grandchildren do not know. The judge adjusted his glasses. His gaze was intense. What else does that envelope contain? I paused. The weight of the moment was immense. Before I show you, Your Honor, I would like the court to hear from my grandchildren. It is only fair that they have a voice in their own future. Valerie's head snapped up. A glimmer of hope returned to her eyes. She thought they were still her children. She thought their blood connection would be enough. She had no idea how deeply a 13-year wound could run. Very well, the judge agreed. Arthur Vance, please approach the stand. My grandson, my tall, serious Arthur, rose. He walked to the stand, each step deliberate. He looked at me, a small, sad smile on his face. Then he looked at his mother, and he began to speak. Your Honor, he said, his voice quiet but strong. For a long time I was angry. I didn't understand why my mom left. My friends had parents who picked them up from school. I had my grandma who worked 2 jobs and still never missed a single school meeting. When I turned 15, I stopped being angry. I understood that my grandma had sacrificed everything for us. She had no obligation, but she did it because she loves us. He turned to Valerie. Mom, if I can call you that, I'm glad you're well, but I can't pretend these 13 years didn't happen. I can't pretend it doesn't hurt to know you started a new family while we grew up wondering what we did wrong. Where would you like to live, Arthur? The judge asked gently. Arthur's answer was clear and unwavering. Your Honor, I am of legal age now. I make my own decisions. But if my answer helps my sisters, then it is simple. I want to stay with my grandma. She is the one who raised us. She is the one who never abandoned us. Next it was Emily's turn. My graceful, poetic Emily. She walked to the stand, her posture elegant but her shoulders tight with tension. Your Honor, she began, her voice soft but clear. I remember more than Arthur. I remember Mom crying a lot. I remember her staying in bed all day. I was sick. Valerie cried out. I had postpartum depression. The judge silenced her with a glare. Emily continued, undeterred. I understand you were sick, Mom, but I also remember my first day at Grandma's house. For the first time in a long time, someone read me a story before bed. Someone told me everything would be okay. When I was 14, I was diagnosed with juvenile diabetes. Grandma learned everything. She learned about nutrition, about glucose levels. She learned how to take care of me. My biological mother is a stranger to me. She shares my blood, but my grandma shared my childhood. The decision is easy. Finally, Andrea approached the stand, my little firebrand. At 16 she had a rebellious spark that reminded me so much of a young Valerie, but her spirit was tempered with a wisdom far beyond her years. Andrea, the judge said, what do you remember? Andrea looked directly at Valerie. There was no fear in her eyes, only a cold, hard clarity. I was tiny, Your Honor, but I remember being hungry. I remember crying and no one came. I remember the smell of sadness in our house. But I also remember my first bath at Grandma's, the clean pajamas that smelled like fabric softener, the warm milk with honey. Would you like to get to know your mother better? The judge asked. Andrea was quiet for a moment. I'm curious, Your Honor, but I'm also scared. Scared she will leave again. Scared her promises are as empty as they were 13 years ago. My grandma has never failed me. She has never lied to me. When I asked her why my mom left, she told me the truth, that sometimes adults make difficult decisions and that she loved me enough to stay. I feel safest with her. Andrea returned to her seat. The children had spoken. Their truth filled the courtroom, a powerful, undeniable force. Mrs. Vance, the judge said, turning back to me, your grandchildren have been very clear. Is there anything else the court should know? I looked at my grandchildren. They had been so brave. Now it was my turn. Yes, Your Honor. There is one more thing. I reached into the envelope and pulled out the final folded document. The paper was yellowed and fragile. This is a document I found 2 years ago, among the things Valerie abandoned in her old apartment. A document she wrote and signed herself. Valerie went as white as a sheet. What kind of document, Mrs. Vance? I held it up. A voluntary renunciation of parental rights, Your Honor. Written in my daughter's own hand, signed and dated 3 days after she left the children with me. A collective gasp went through the courtroom. Judge Mason shot to his feet, his professional calm shattered. A voluntary renunciation? Are you certain? Completely certain, Your Honor. The clerk took the paper. Attorney Sullivan snatched it from his hands. His face drained of all color as he read the word. This can't be real, he stammered. Read it aloud, please, the judge commanded. The lawyer's voice was choked. I, Valerie Vance, 26 years of age, hereby voluntarily relinquish all my rights as mother of Arthur Vance, Emily Vance and Andrea Vance. I acknowledge that I do not have the emotional, economic, or psychological capacity to raise them adequately. I fully authorize my mother, Elara Vance, to make all legal, medical, and educational decisions related to my children. I waive any right to visit them, contact them, or claim them in the future. This decision is definitive and irrevocable. Signed, Valerie Vance. Dated, October 15, 2011. Valerie broke into hysterical sobs. I was crazy. I didn't know what I was writing. I was sick. Order. The judge boomed, banging his gavel. Mrs. Vance, do you have any witness to this document? Yes, Your Honor. The landlady of the building, Mrs. Paula Sterling. She can testify that my daughter asked her for paper and a pen that day. She can also confirm that Valerie was coherent and conscious. Furthermore, I added, my voice cutting through Valerie's sobs, there's something else. Something I only discovered 2 weeks ago that explains why my daughter returned now, at this exact moment. I pulled a small folder from my purse. Your Honor, my private investigator didn't just look into my daughter's past. He looked into her present. Valerie and her partner, Javier Dawson, are in severe financial crisis. 6 months ago, Javier lost his job. 4 months ago, they received an eviction notice. And 3 months ago, right when they learned about my brother's inheritance, they started this custody case. I looked directly at Valerie. A week ago, my daughter called me, for the first time in 13 years. The room buzzed with surprise. And what did she say? The judge asked. She told me she had matured, that she wanted her children back. I asked her why now after so long. She said she had been saving money to offer them a better life. Then I asked her about the inheritance. There was a long silence. Then she said, Mom, that money belongs to my children. I just want to make sure they get it. And your reply? I told her the money was already safe, in a trust fund managed by me, their legal guardian. It was then that her tone changed. She told me that as their biological mother, she had more right to manage that money. She told me she could fight me in court. She threatened me, Your Honor. She told me if I didn't hand over custody and control of the inheritance, she would accuse me of kidnapping. Arthur jumped to his feet. Grandma, why didn't you tell us she threatened you? Because I didn't want you to worry, I said softly, and because I knew the truth would come out. Mrs. Vance, the judge said, do you have a recording of this call? I smiled a small, weary smile. No, Your Honor. I have something better. I pulled out a final set of papers. After the call, she sent me several text messages, repeating her threats. Messages I have printed for the court. I handed them to the clerk. The judge read them, his face growing darker with every word. He looked at Valerie. Mrs. Vance, "Do you confirm you sent these messages?" She just sobbed. He then looked at her lawyer. "And this one? If you give me custody, we can reach an agreement on the inheritance. 50-50th. You keep half for taking care of them. But if you force me to go to trial, I get everything." Attorney Sullivan looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. The judge placed the documents on his desk. The case was no longer about a mother's love. It was about a daughter's greed. "Your Honor," I said softly, but my voice carried through the silent courtroom. "I am not seeking revenge against my daughter. I understand she went through difficult times. I understand that early motherhood and mental health problems can lead to desperate decisions." I looked at Valerie not with anger but with a deep, profound sadness. "But I cannot accept this. After 13 years of absence, after formally renouncing her rights, after forgetting these children existed, she returns only for money. That I cannot accept." "What do you request from the court, Mrs. Vance?" the judge asked. "That my permanent legal guardianship be confirmed, that my daughter's custody demand be rejected, and that a restraining order be issued, preventing her from contacting the children until they are of legal age and decide for themselves if they wish to see her. You can't take my children away from me forever." Valerie screamed. I turned to face her. The courtroom, the judge, the lawyers, they all faded away. It was just a mother and a daughter. "Valerie," I said, my voice firm but full of a pain that had aged for 13 years. "You gave them up. You wrote the letter. You made the choice. I am not taking anything from you. I am simply protecting what you abandoned." "But they're my children," she sobbed. "No," I replied, the word a final, heavy stone. "They are the children you had. I am the one who raised them. I am the one who loves them unconditionally. I am the one who sacrificed my peace, my health, and my money to give them a home." The judge declared a 30-minute recess. The room slowly emptied, but my grandchildren came to me. They surrounded me, their arms a shield of love. "Grandma," Andrea whispered, "why did you never tell us she gave us up in writing?" "Because I wanted you to have the chance to form your own opinion," I said, stroking her hair. "I didn't want you to grow up with hate in your hearts." "But you lied," Arthur said, his voice thick with emotion. "You told us maybe she would come back." "I didn't lie, my love," I said, my eyes welling with tears. "I held on to that hope for a very long time. I hoped she would mature. I hoped she would return for the right reasons. But when she called me last week, I knew. She didn't come back for you. She came back for the money." During the recess, Valerie approached us. Her lawyer tried to stop her, but she shook him off. She looked broken. "Mom," she said, her voice a shattered whisper. "Can we talk? I know I made terrible mistakes, but I've changed." "Have you changed, Valerie?" I asked, my voice flat. "Or do you just need money?" Her gaze fell. "Both are true. Yes, I need the money, but I've missed my children." "You've missed them." My voice rose. "You had 13 years to miss them, Valerie. 13 years to send a single postcard. 13 years to ask if they were okay." "I was scared," she cried. "I was scared they would hate me." "Then why now? Why does your courage suddenly appear when there is $150,000 on the line?" She leaned against the wall, her confession tumbling out. "Javier, my husband, he told me that if I didn't get the children and their inheritance back, he would leave me. He said he couldn't stay with a woman who had given away a fortune." I felt a pang of pity. It was a faint, distant echo. "So you haven't changed at all," I said sadly. 13 years ago you abandoned your children for a man. Today you are here for the same reason." "It's not that simple," she insisted. "Javier has supported me. Without him I have nothing." "And your other child?" I asked quietly. "The one you were able to raise?" She flinched as if I'd slapped her. "Paul is different. He was born into my marriage. Arthur, Emily, and Andrea were also your children, Valerie. They also deserve to be part of a plan." "I couldn't do it," she exploded. "I was a kid. Every time they cried, I cried. I couldn't handle it." "Then why didn't you ask for help?" I asked, my voice softening for a moment. "Why didn't you just say, 'Mom, I can't do this alone'?" "Because I was afraid you'd judge me." "I would have helped you," I whispered. "We would have found a way. But you chose to run." "I know," she sobbed. "I know." She straightened up, a flicker of her old defiance returning. "But legally, Mom, I'm still their mother. That paper wasn't notarized. Technically, it doesn't have full legal validity." And there was the real Valerie, calculating, manipulative, always looking for the loophole. "So this was never about love," I said, my heart heavy. "This was about winning a legal case." "We can make an agreement," she pleaded. "I'll take the children, you can visit. We can divide the inheritance fairly. It's only right you get compensation." Compensation. The word tasted like poison. "Valerie, do you think I raised your children as an investment? Do you think I stayed up all night when they had nightmares because I expected a paycheck? I did it because I love them, because they are my blood, because when you abandoned them, someone had to love them unconditionally." She covered her ears. "Stop. Just stop." "No, Valerie. this is what you need to hear. I looked at this broken woman, my daughter, and I felt a wave of clarity. The recess was ending. The final judgment was near. Mom, she whispered, her hands dropping from her ears. Her eyes were wide and pleading, the same look she'd had as a little girl when she'd broken my favorite vase. What do I have to do for you to forgive me? The question hung in the air. For years I had dreamed of her asking it. I had rehearsed my answer 1,000 times in my head. But now the words felt hollow. Valerie, forgiveness isn't a transaction. It isn't something you earn. It's something you give, to free yourself from the poison of resentment. So do you forgive me? She pressed. I looked at my daughter, this 39-year-old woman who was still a lost child. I forgive you for being a scared girl who didn't know how to be a mother. I forgive you for making desperate choices, but I cannot forgive you for coming back only for money. I cannot forgive you for threatening to send me to jail to get what you want, and I will not allow you to hurt these children again. Her face crumbled. So there's nothing I can do? Yes, there is, I said firmly. You can go back to your life. You can work on yourself. And when you have truly, genuinely changed, when you can offer love without expecting anything in return, then perhaps your children will decide if they want to meet you. A court officer appeared. The recess is over. As we walked back, Valerie grabbed my arm. Mom, one last question. If I withdraw the lawsuit now, will you let me see them? Supervised visits. I looked her in the eye. That decision is not mine to make, Valerie. It is theirs. I will not pressure them. I will respect whatever they choose. We re-entered the courtroom. Judge Mason was already on the bench. His face was solemn. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, I have reviewed all the evidence. This case presents very disturbing element. He looked directly at Valerie. Mrs. Vance, after examining the renunciation of parental rights, the text messages, and the 13-year history of abandonment, I have serious questions. The medical reports you submitted show you were discharged from psychiatric treatment 2 months before you wrote that renunciation. Your doctor certified you as mentally stable. 2 months after that, you legally married Mr. Javier Dawson. Can you explain how someone mentally incapable of making decisions about their children could simultaneously make the legal decision to marry? Valerie could not answer. Furthermore, the judge continued, I have reviewed the school records for your son, Paul. They show you have been a present and active mother in his life for 11 years. This demonstrates that you had the capacity to be a mother. You simply chose to exercise that capacity only with the child who was convenient for you. Every word was a nail in the coffin of her case. But most concerning of all, the judge said, holding up the printed text messages, are these threats. Threatening your mother with false accusations of kidnapping is not just morally reprehensible, constitutes extortion a serious felony. In light of this, I have a legal obligation to refer this case to the district attorney's office to evaluate whether criminal charges should be filed. No, Valerie cried out, staggering. Please, I just wanted my children back. Mrs. Vance, the judge said, his voice cold as ice. You did not want your children back. You wanted their inheritance. The evidence is overwhelmingly clear. He turned to me. Mrs. Alara Vance, do you wish to file charges for extortion against your daughter? The question stunned me. I had come here to protect my grandchildren, not to send my daughter to prison. I looked at Valerie's pleading face. I looked at the tense, worried faces of my grandchildren, and I found my answer. No, Your Honor, I said. I do not wish to file criminal charges. Valerie sighed in relief. However, I continued, I do request a restraining order for a minimum of 5 years, and I request that it be established in the public record that Mrs. Valerie Vance voluntarily relinquished all her parental rights, and that any future attempt to claim custody be considered frivolous and without legal merit. Granted, the judge said. Mom, please don't do this. Valerie wailed. Don't take them away forever. I turned to her one last time. Valerie, I am not taking anything. You let them go. I am just protecting what you abandoned. Arthur stood up then. His voice filled the courtroom. Your Honor, may I say something? The judge nodded. Arthur walked to the front. He looked not at the judge, but at Valerie. I wanted to be clear for the record that my sisters and I do not consider Valerie Vance our mother. She is the woman who gave us life. Our mother is Alara Vance, the woman who raised us, who loved us, and who never abandoned us. He took a breath, his voice thick with emotion. And I want you to know, Valerie, that if you ever truly change, if you can ever offer genuine love, then perhaps we will consider getting to know you as a person, but you will never be our mother. That title belongs to Grandma Alara. Emily and Andrea rose and joined their brother. I don't hate you, Emily said, but I don't know you. You are a stranger. Andrea looked Valerie dead in the eye. If you had come back for love, maybe we could have built something. But you came back for money. and that tells us everything we need to know." The judge tapped his gavel. The sound echoed, final and absolute. "This court hereby rules as follows. The permanent legal guardianship of Mrs. Alara Vance is confirmed. A 5-year restraining order is established against Mrs. Valerie Vance. The custody demand is declared null and void." The hearing was over. We had won. As we left the courtroom, my grandchildren surrounded me, their arms a fortress of love. I had won the legal battle, but I felt a deep, aching sadness for the daughter I had lost so long ago. 3 months after the trial, a fragile peace settled over our lives. The constant fear was gone. The threat of losing the children had lifted. I sat in my small kitchen watching Andrea practice a new song on her guitar. The evening sun streamed through the window, illuminating her face. She looked so much like me at that age, but with a confidence I never had. Arthur was away at college, studying engineering on a full scholarship. Emily worked at a local bookstore, saving money for her college dreams. Life had found its rhythm again. The doorbell rang. It was my sister Alma holding a tray of freshly made tamales. "Thought you could use these," she said with her warm, familiar smile. As we sat with coffee, I could tell she had something on her mind. "Just say it, Alma," I said. "I've known you for 40 years. She sighed. "It's about Valerie. My brother, the judge, he told me, Javier left her. He took their son Paul. He told her he couldn't stay with a woman who had lost a fortune by being stupid." The news hit me like a physical blow. Despite everything, she was still my daughter. The thought of her suffering alone sent a pang of pain through my heart. "Where is she?" I asked. "A small apartment downtown, working nights cleaning offices. Theodore says she looks terrible, thin and sad." Andrea had stopped playing her guitar. She had been listening. "Grandma, do you feel bad for her?" she asked, her question wise beyond her years. I looked at my granddaughter. "Yes, my love, I do. I don't like knowing she's suffering, but that doesn't mean we were wrong to defend ourselves, right?" I smiled and stroked her hair. "No, my love. Sometimes in life we have to make difficult decisions. You can feel compassion for someone and, at the same time, protect yourself from them." That night I couldn't sleep. I imagined Valerie alone in a small, cold room. I imagined her regret, her loneliness. The next day I did something that surprised even myself. I went to the supermarket. I bought rice, beans, chicken, and vegetables. A week's worth of groceries. I drove to the address Alma had given me. The building was old and run down. I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor and knocked on apartment 3B. "Who is it?" a weak voice asked. "It's me, Valerie. Your mom." There was a long silence, then the sound of bolts being drawn back. The door opened. She looked like a ghost. Her face was gaunt, her eyes hollow. "Mom," she whispered, "what are you doing here?" "I brought you some things," I said, holding up the bags. "May I come in?" She stepped aside. The apartment was tiny but clean. Unpaid bills were stacked on the kitchen table. "Why?" she asked as I set the groceries on the counter. "Because you're my daughter," I replied simply, "and I can't let you go hungry." She collapsed onto the sofa and broke down, her body racked with sobs. "I lost everything, Mom. Javier took Paul. He called me a loser." I sat beside her. "And what did you say to him?" "Nothing, because I knew he was right. I am a loser. I lost my first children. I lost the inheritance. I lost Paul." "Valerie," I said, my voice soft but firm, "you didn't lose your first children. You abandoned them. There is a difference." She looked at me, her eyes raw with pain. "You're always going to remind me of my mistakes." "I'm not going to remind you, but I won't let you rewrite history. If you want to change, you have to start with the truth." "And what truth is that?" she spat, a flicker of her old anger returning. I stood and walked to the window. "The truth is that you had 3 beautiful children, and you left them because they weren't convenient. You forgot about them for 13 years, and you only came back when money was involved." "I know all that," she screamed. "I live with that guilt every day." "Guilt is useless, Valerie. Guilt is just self-pity in disguise. What is useful is repentance, a real desire to change." "And how do you know if my repentance is genuine?" "Because if it were genuine," I said, turning to face her, "you wouldn't have come back demanding custody. You would have come back asking for forgiveness. You would have come back asking how you could help, not what you could get." She was silent for a long time. Finally, she asked, her voice small, "Is there any way I can ever meet my children again?" "Maybe," I replied, "but it will be on their terms. When they are ready, if they are ever ready. In the meantime, you work on yourself. You get help. You find a job. You learn to live alone. You become the woman you would have wanted their mother to be." I walked to the door. "The food will last a week. After that, you're on your own. Will you visit me again?" she asked. "I don't know, Valerie. That depends on you." I left her apartment, my heart a tangle of emotions. I didn't know if I had done the right thing, but I knew I couldn't stand by and watch my daughter starve. When I got home, Arthur was there visiting from college. "Where were you, Grandma?" he asked. I told him the truth. I went to see your biological mother. His face hardened. Why? Because she's hungry, and she is still my daughter. He was quiet for a moment. I hope this doesn't mean you're letting her back into our lives. No, my love, I said. It means I am capable of feeling compassion without compromising our safety. He nodded, a slow understanding dawning in his eyes. Do you think she'll ever really change? I don't know, I answered honestly. But if she does, it will be because she chose to. Not because we rescued her. 1 year after the trial, my garden was thriving. I sat on my small porch, watching the tomatoes ripen on the vine. Life had settled into a new, more peaceful normal. Arthur had graduated with honors and was working at an engineering firm. Emily had been accepted to her dream college. And Andrea, now 17, was the confident leader of her school's band. The inheritance money remained untouched in their trust accounts, a silent testament to the storm we had weathered. My sister Elma arrived one afternoon, her face alight with news. Eleanor, it's Valerie. She's been in therapy for 6 months, paying for it herself with her cleaning job. I felt a flicker of surprise, genuine surprise. And there's more, Elma continued. She got a day job, a receptionist at a medical clinic. She looks better, more stable. She hasn't asked about the children, not directly. She told someone that her mom had already done enough for her, that now it was her turn to prove she could change without help. For the first time in years, I felt a surge of pride for my daughter. It was a strange, unfamiliar feeling. That afternoon, Andrea came home from school with a thoughtful expression on her face. Grandma, she asked, can I ask you something? Always, my love. Do you think I'll ever want to meet my biological mom? I had known this question would come. I had prepared my heart for it. I don't know, Andrea. That is a decision only you can make. When you are ready. Would you be upset if I did? No, my love, I said, my voice full of a love that had been tested and proven true. I would be proud of you for making your own decision as a responsible adult. And if you decided never to meet her, I would be proud of that too. The choice is yours. Completely. That night, as I prepared dinner, I reflected on the long, painful journey. For years, I had held on to a bitter resentment. It was a chain and it had bound both of us. When I finally let it go, I had freed myself. Last week, Emily turned 19. During her small birthday celebration, she hugged me tight. Grandma, she said, thank you for saving us. But more than that, thank you for teaching us that true love doesn't abandon. Arthur, now 21, had access to his inheritance. The first thing he did was write me a check for $10,000. For everything you spent on us, he said, his eyes shining with gratitude. I accepted it, not because I needed the money, but because it was vital for him to give it. It was a symbol of his journey from a scared little boy to a responsible, generous man. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Valerie had returned for the right reasons. Suppose she had come asking for forgiveness instead of demanding custody. We could have built something new. My grandchildren may have known their mother. But life is not about maybes. It is about the choices we make. I chose to protect 3 abandoned children. I decided to love them when their own mother could not. And when the time came, I decided to fight for them with every ounce of my strength. I regret none of it. Today, when I look at my grandchildren, these responsible, empathetic, hardworking adults, I know I made the right choice. They are living proof that unconditional love and firm boundaries can not only coexist, but can create a foundation of unshakable strength. People sometimes ask if I hate my daughter. The answer is no. I don't hate her, but I do not excuse her. I understand that we all make mistakes, but some mistakes have permanent consequences. Abandoning your children is not a mistake. It is a decision that defines you. Valerie chose her new life over her children. I decided to put those children before my own comfort. We both live with the consequences of our choices. The difference is I can sleep at night knowing I always put their well-being first. She will have to live forever with the knowledge that she was absent when they needed her most. If there is a lesson in all of this, it is that justice is not always about punishment. Sometimes, justice is simply allowing people to receive what their actions have earned. I earned the unconditional love of my grandchildren. Valerie earned their absence. It is not revenge. It is the natural order of things. And perhaps if she has truly changed, my grandchildren will one day decide to give her a chance. But it will be their decision on their terms. In the meantime, I will continue to be what I have always been. Their grandmother, their protector, their home, their unconditional love. Because that is how true love works. It does not abandon. It does not set conditions. It simply is, constant as the dawn, strong as the roots of an old tree. And that, at the end of the day, is more than enough.